Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. Jaime En Fuego here, and I welcome you once more to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment, for a rapido review of a film that just hit Netflix. It was one of my most anticipated, at least as far as this just barely eking into fall season. I mean, the trailer looked dope, and even though I'm not very familiar with Antonio Campos, who is the guy who directed this, I mean, the cast alone, between Robert Pattinson and Tom Holland and Jason Clarke and Mia Wasikowska, I believe. I hope I'm not butchering that, but I mean, yeah, the ensemble here was legit, and I was supremely excited about this film. And just to give some brief thoughts, I will definitely admit that this is a fantastically acted film. It is a beautifully shot film. I mean, everything that we get in this like kind of Midwestern America, the cars, the costuming, this sort of period piece that scales so much time from, you know, post-World War II into the 60s and all this other stuff. Bill Skarsgård also being in this. Man, I wanted to like this movie a lot more than I actually did. Now, that's not to say that it's bad, but it was just, the story itself was very much just okay in my estimation. And so that's not a condemnation, but yeah, basic theme in a lot of ways that this is entrenched in is religious misinterpretation, a lot of ways, and a damning of the religious right, and, you know, just the what we get so often in these sort of smaller rural American towns, especially in the Midwest and, you know, South and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, it's really a story about a father who comes back, being Skarsgård, from World War II, and he found something, basically like a crucifixion sort of setting, that messed him up big time because of, without spoiling things, because this is a non-spoiler review, something that he chose to do upon the discovery of this particular person when he was in the South Pacific, a soldier, you know, much like him. And it carries over with him, despite the fact that, you know, he settles down to a degree, has a child who grows up to be our Tom Holland character in the later 60s, and yet, yeah, there are some very intensely acted scenes with Bill Skarsgård, aka the Pennywise 2.0, I guess you could say, and he's great, you know. In those scenes, he really has that brooding sense of nastiness, and just, you know, some stuff that goes down with his wife, and trying to just place the purpose. And there's all too often, you know, people are like, if I'm devout and I believe, why am I being persecuted? Why am I going through all of this? And so that's a thing here. And then even later on, as you see from like some of the trailers and stuff like that, it's a common theme in the fact that the very religiously minded, the seemingly devout, are in a lot of ways the most corrupt. And so those story threads, they actually resonate, and they're compelling, and they're interesting. And what ends up going down with when Skarsgård's kid, who is played by Tom Holland, when we flash forward in the narrative, and everything that is going down with him, and him just embodying so many of the similar aspects of the rage and the resentment, and also the righteous anger, so to speak. That's all very solid stuff. But I will definitely say that this film, it's a little long in the tooth, you know. It's over 2 hours. I think it's like 2:18 if you minus the credits, which are like, man, credits in feature films a lot of the time now are like 5 to 7 minutes, which is just crazy to me in a lot of ways. If it's an animated film, or if there's post-credits or whatever, I guess that's a little more forgivable. But yeah, this one, with like almost 8 minutes left, if I recall correctly, after just finishing it, it hit the creds, man. And so, yeah, I mean, it still felt poorly paced, and in a lot of ways, in my estimation, it felt a little disjointed and kind of all over the place, especially with two other storylines that they eventually correlate, they eventually connect the proverbial dots. But so Jason Clarke, actor that I think is insanely underrated. He gets a lot of shite because of the fact that he was in that Terminator Genesis, Sega Genesis, whatever the hell it was called. But yeah, man, I mean, I actually enjoyed him as Louis Creed in the Pet Sematary remake, and I mean, I think, I don't know, I'm not here to talk about all of his prior roles or anything like that, but he has this kind of subplot storyline that just feels unnecessary. I mean, it's about him and kind of a femme fatale that he hooks up with, and they're going around doing some ill shizzle without getting into it. And then we also have a subplot with Sebastian Stan, I believe it is, the Winter Soldier himself. And so that's another bit that just, anytime we segue to that storyline, it feels unnecessary. And I know that this is based on a novel, and it's so much tougher to have these sort of like proper, I guess, proper interpretation, representation, and just give certain credits and characters their due justice in a lot of ways. But yeah, this one for me just didn't, when we were exploring those two very secondary storylines, it just didn't flow. Now, I gotta give mad credits to Robert Pattinson as well, who, when we flash forward to the, Skarsgård's grown-up kid in Tom Holland, who is basically our main character, if we're gonna be fair about this, Pattinson is great in this role. He is terrific as a very nasty, nefarious, and taking advantage in a small town of just ill-minded women. And yet that's another thing that I do have to say. There's a lot of very strong male performances in this movie. And I feel like the reason the women are kind of poorly represented in a lot of ways is, once again, back to the script, which I was not particularly impressed with in a lot of ways, with the fact that it did do some of that time jumping. It did feel kind of junky, I guess, and just, all over the place at times, and the pacing was poor in a lot of ways. And then another thing that does not work very well in this film, at least for me, and once again, film is subjective. I've seen a lot of praise for this movie, and I mean, as I also mentioned earlier, the fact that it is beautifully shot and great score and great performances, but the sequencing and the scripting for me is the worst thing, and I don't like this narrator. We have a narrator throughout who is just imparting so much exposition, like over and over and over throughout beat after beat of the storyline, and I found that it took me out of it. That sort of narration works in a novel, does not. I mean, the whole thing that, shout out to Cecil Laird on the horror show, my cohort in crime over there, who I was just watching Greenland with tonight, which we weren't able to review, so I came home and I watched and reviewed this instead on my personal channel. And by the way, this is most definitely like drama thriller. This would be a stretch to cover on the horror show, and so that's why it's over here with me. But yeah, man, the thing is, you always want to show and not tell, and that's something that he made just very imperative to me in certain projects that we've worked on before, and just being a necessary part of filmmaking. How if you can just have somebody, even if there's no dialogue involved, just impart the aspect of the story and just, make you feel and relate. But if you have to basically spoon feed the sort of situation, yeah, I mean, there are so many scenes where characters start to do something, and then there's like a pause of contemplation, and our narrator kicks in and tells you what this person is feeling, because of the fact that they obviously made a deliberate choice not to have it be as evident, and to just kind of, just lead you through and make sure that the audience understood said things. And so, yes, the devil it has its merits, and it is an impressive film from a stylistic standpoint and also from a performance standpoint. But regrettably, the weakest thing for me was the story that it was trying to tell. This is a miss for me in a lot of ways, and so for that reason, I struggle, because it's not a bueno movie. I kind of give it more of a 2.5 based on all of the positives that I mentioned. So yeah, I'm actually gonna, since I don't do half half stars, half fuego fireballs. I'm gonna say that this is a malo film, which is probably gonna be contested and disagreed with, but I have to stand by my gut in this one, and also the finale of this, and so, hey, it is what it is, but yes, watch, make up your own mind, and check out exclusively on Netflix, Antonio Campos.
The devil all the time.
I was not the biggest fan, unfortunately. So, I've been Jaime En Fuego. Y'all can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube. Most recently, shortly before this, I reviewed David Lynch's 1984 Dune. I'm going to be checking out the Sci-Fi Channel's Dueling miniseries. Oh boy, what else? I did Tenet recently. I did Bill and Ted Face the Music recently. So yeah, just kind of getting back into the groove. And I also gave some thoughts about the Season 2 trailer for The Mandalorian on Disney Plus that arrives October 30th. But if you like spooktacular stuff, the full-on scarific shizzle, that's where you need to jump over to youtube.com/The Horror Show channel. That's where myself, the aforementioned Cecil, my cohort in crime, along with Susie von Slaughter when we get her, Marsha Parker, who has 2 chillins, and so, you know, we get her over when we can. Also Robert Toole, the rest of the team over there, we do at least 1 video a day. And yes, a like, a share, a subscribe over there and here means a hell of a lot, greatly appreciated. So I've been Fuego, y'all have been rad status awesomeness, and until the Reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, san amigos, constant readers and viewers in this instance alike, say thank you for taking a bit of your time with me today. I'm hopeful we share more of this palaver on the film stuff sooner rather than later, and until then, stay home, stay safe, watch more films, and yes, let's do this again soon.